The Enduring Legacy of the Ancient Greek Constellations by Kevin Ablett. Though they have long vanished from the surface of the earth and the daily life of man, the gods and heroes of Greek mythology still thrive in the heavens today and are seen and experienced by millions of humans each night. The constellations of our celestial dome still bear the signs of the ancient world as fully as they did more than 2,000 years ago. The question before us is how, in a world that so thoroughly expunged the traces of ancient paganism that once ran through it, did the ancient myths endure in our skies? The answer to this question lies in between two worlds, that of the early scientists who first meticulously mapped out the motion and positions of the stars, and the skilled mythmakers of the classical age who combined and molded the ancient tales onto the heavens. The world of Homer and Hesiod knew only a fraction of the constellations that we know today. When the first star maps were drawn in Greece, only a handful of the constellations were drawn from Greek myth. Rather, they were archetypal images of giant men and monsters outside of any of the heroic, familiar archetypes. Some of these were drawn from Greece's Near Eastern neighbors, many others seem to have been carried over from the darkness and mystery of Greece's prehistory. Even such a familiar constellation as Gemini, the twin sons of Zeus, only made its way into the stars in the 4th century BCE in the tragic plays of Euripides. The constellations that we know today don't bear their names lightly. Even in ancient times, the mathematicians and men of science sought to draw a line between the real world and the world of myth. Our heavens very nearly ended up without its mythic heritage. But over the centuries, more and more myths found their way into the skies until in Ptolemy's time, in the 2nd century of the Common Era, a full 48 constellations were identified, and more than half were drawn from the annals of ancient mythology. Our constellation map today, save only a few modifications and additions, mirrors that of the ancient Greek world. Orion, Poseidon's son, still rises in the east, annually striding through the autumn sky. Perseus, his bride Andromeda, and her whole family are there as well, tracing out their eternal pathways at the northern limit of the skies. Attempts to strip the sky of its population of pagan idols happened again in the pre-modern age. Julius Schiller in the 17th century commissioned a whole new constellation map, sanitized of its pagan taint and teeming with the characters of the Protestant Bible. But his pious efforts and those from the preceding centuries were no match for the power of the Greeks' constellation canon, and the ancient gods endured. The advances of science and the conquest of conservative religion lost out to the pagan gods because it was the pagans themselves who first carved their names in the western skies. As the fates would have it, to calculate the proper motion of a star, a fundamental step in being able to tell time accurately, one needs meticulous records of that star's rising and setting positions over a vast period. The star catalogue of Clodius Ptolemy was the backbone upon which all later Western astronomy was formed. The great Arabic polymath Al-Kindi drew from his well, as did Copernicus, Galileo, and even Isaac Newton. Ptolemy drew his 48 constellations from the earlier mythic star catalogues of Hyginus and Eratosthenes, who likewise took their catalogues from the great Hipparchus, and before him Eudoxus. And from these sources, a combination of meticulous star positions was mapped against the Greeks' mythic landscape, entrenching the ancient myths forever in the consciousness of Western humanity. This one single point, mankind's need to keep time, ensured that the gods and heroes of Greek myth would not fade from our skies. Imagine not knowing what time of day it was. Try getting to work or class on time without being able to set an alarm or to even know for certain what day it was, unless we remembered to count the days prior. Today we each have highly advanced digital clocks and calendars at our fingertips, telling us every minute of every day what time it is, what day it is. We experience the annual and diurnal motion of the earth through our cell phones and wristwatches. We scarcely give a thought to the gods and heroes of Greek myth who carved their names in the skies and who endured a millennium of persecution to aid us in building this remarkable technology. The goal of this presentation has been to show you the vital role that the Greek myths had in forging our modern world, and to instill in you something of the majesty and wonder that the Greeks' vision of the skies can afford. Thank you.